I loved them more than life itself. My love for my wife was indescribable. As soon as I looked at her, Cupid's arrow struck my heart. Her smile made me speechless and weak in the knees. I stuttered as I spoke. Instead of mocking me, she understood, held out her hand, and said her name. Clarissa. Her name flew smoothly off my tongue, and I was instantly captivated. For lunch, we went to Big Pete's Island Grill restaurant. She did most of the talking, allowing me to focus on her perfect features. Her almond-shaped honey-brown eyes sparkled when she laughed, and her glowing ivory skin was flawless. Her Grecian nose and expressive lips needed no embellishment. Her bone structure was exquisite, the envy of any model. I couldn't take my eyes off her. I was getting lost in her eyes, finally realizing their meaning. Her hair shone like a summer sunset and resembled a halo around her head. I know this may seem crazy or obsessive, but I swear it was all true. She was the epitome of perfection, and I was determined to make her mine. After 6 months of dating, I proposed to her and was beyond happy when she said yes. 3 months later, we were married. We moved into a charming 3-bedroom home with a spacious backyard for our future children. She brought me so much joy. I would come home from work and she always had dinner ready. Did I mention she was an amazing cook? Every meal was a delightful treat, and as a result I gained weight. From 195 pounds, I went from 195 pounds to 230 pounds. My once athletic figure became soft and flabby, but she loved me still, and that made me love her even more. On our first anniversary, we found out we were expecting a baby. A home pregnancy test confirmed our impending parenthood, and later an ultrasound revealed that we were having triplets. We couldn't be happier. We spent the next 5 months preparing for the arrival of our little ones. Labor and delivery was challenging, but it was worth it when we welcomed the birth of 3 girls and 1 boy. Everything seemed perfect. My wife insisted on breastfeeding them until they were 3, which seemed unusual to me, but I trusted her as a mother. Despite having to raise 3 children, she managed to cook dinner for me every night. It was an incredible feat, and I asked her not to worry about me. However, she brushed off my concerns. She assured me that I was just as important to her and she wanted to take care of me. She didn't want me to waste myself. For that, I loved her even more. When the scale hit the 275-pound mark, I started to worry. I didn't even realize how much weight I had gained. I shared my concerns with Clarissa, and in response, she gave me a big hug and expressed her love for my body, assuring me that I was beautiful just the way I was. You don't need to lose weight. You just need to change the way you feel about your body. I accepted her point of view and continued to devour everything she put in front of me. As I sat at the table and devoured my food, I caught her loving gaze. I could see her satisfaction, and it encouraged me to please her even more, which led to me asking for more food. 3 years later, according to my wife, our children were ready for solid food by now. I could feel the excitement, looking forward to the moment when we would all sit down at the table together. My wife treated it as a special occasion, decorating the table with a gold tablecloth and placing our best cutlery and plates at each of the 5 places. I sat at the head of the table, surrounded by my beautiful family. The girls looked like miniature copies of my wife, and my son looked like her. As I stood up, I raised my crystal goblet and toasted to my family. My wife reciprocated. When I regained consciousness, I found myself naked and bound on the table. Confused, I looked around, my gaze stopping on Clarissa. What's going on? What does all this mean? Wilbur, I told you the kids were ready for solid food, didn't I? What? It witnessed a haunting scene, looking at my children fixated on their mother. Clarissa greeted me with a nod. The three innocent toddlers turned their heads in my direction. Although I couldn't decipher their expression, it resembled an eerie hunger. Stunned, I watched them climb onto the table. The daughters took their seats on either side of me, and my son settled at my head. He looked intently into my eyes, then looked up at his mother. With a single word, she commanded them, "Eat." I watched in horror as their milk teeth lengthened and sharpened. Excruciating pain pierced my side as my daughters dug deep into my flesh. Streams of blood flowed from the corners of their mouths as they savored their first taste of meat. My wife watched silently, a trickle of saliva dripping from her mouth. Another searing pain shot through me as another piece of flesh was torn from my flesh. I cried out and looked down. One of my daughters was still chewing and the other was licking the blood from the open wound. I looked up and saw my son looking at me. My son? I asked in bewilderment. He was smirking. His mouth now had the same sharp teeth as his sister's. It was not the innocent and enthusiastic smile of a small child, but the twisted grin of a predatory creature. His mouth stretched wider than was possible for a child his age, and he sank his teeth into my head. I heard the bone crunch as blood flowed past my ears and poured out onto the table. In my last moments of consciousness, I saw my wife walk over, stand next to my son, and look into my closing eyes. She was fattening me up and preparing me to be the first course for our children before they were even born, and I didn't suspect a thing. She leaned forward to take her portion. When she lifted her head, I saw the remnants of flesh lodge between her teeth as she chewed, and my blood smeared across her mouth and chin. They were feeding on themselves. The sounds of flesh being torn from bones and the squelching of blood filled my ears. Before I surrendered to death's embrace, the last image imprinted on my retinas was the sight of Clarissa and our children. Their tired but glazed eyes were drenched in blood. The jagged teeth were gone, but traces of the recent feast remained. The last sound that reached my ears was a childish giggle as they cooed sweetly, "Thank you, Daddy." Apparently, I never realized who Clarissa was and left this world oblivious to her true identity and the nature of our offspring. It didn't matter, though. My love for them all remained unwavering. If sacrificing my own life guaranteed their survival, I was willing to sacrifice it.